Hi, I'm Brenton with All Out Octane. In this video, I'm going to describe a little bit about collecting Hot Wheels. So the first subject in collecting Hot Wheels actually starts at the factory. Hot Wheels has many employees, they have a lot of assets, land, buildings, etc. They can pay people salaries, they can pay people wages, they can cover health insurance. So you know that they're going to be making a large amount of money off of the products that they sell. You want to keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the video. So first up is buying a car off the pegs. Now off the pegs means it's on the shelf at a retail store that you can buy. There are a few factors that go into purchasing the car off the pegs. The first is the item itself. How much does the item cost? Hot Wheels normally cost around 97 cents to $1.10 and anywhere in that ballpark. So for this video, we're going to use the average of $1. The second factor is time. How much do you value your time? If you go out collecting for an hour, the national minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. So if you value your time to that standard, your hour was worth $7.25. Next up is the cost per mile, or CPM. According to AAA, the average cost per mile to operate a vehicle is 0.608 per mile, so roughly 60 cents a mile. If you have to travel 10 miles there and back to collect Hot Wheels, you're looking at $6.08 right off the bat to go Hot Wheel collecting. So let's recap. We have a $1 item, we have $7.25 for an hour of collecting, and we have $6.08 for your cost per mile. So if you add all that up, that equals $14.33 to go collect one Hot Wheel. Now that doesn't mean it takes an hour to go find a Hot Wheel, or it's 10 miles to go find a Hot Wheel, or that you're buying just one Hot Wheel. It's important to note that the equation fluctuates based on all three of those factors. Now let's talk about selling a Hot Wheel car. You might purchase extra Hot Wheel cars to sell and try to make a profit. Here are a couple factors that go into selling a Hot Wheel car. First is the price of the item. How much did you spend on the item? If you buy 10 cars, you've already spent $10, and that factors into the first equation of buying a Hot Wheel car. When selling a Hot Wheel car, you now have to consider the listing fee, if it's applicable. If you utilize eBay, they normally have a listing fee. And PayPal, if you utilize PayPal, also has a transaction fee. Depending on that rate, that eats away at your profit margin. Then you have to factor in shipping, and you also have to factor in your time. It does take time to list a car on eBay, to pack it up, and to take it to the post office or put it in your mailbox to ship it. Even if it is 10-15 minutes, that's still part of your time that you want to factor in on how much profit you're going to make from the car. If you're selling just one car, the profit margin is very, very slim. You would actually have to sell in large quantities to ever make a large amount of profit. If you are selling one car on eBay, it does sort of favor the buyer to actually purchase the car because it might end up being less than the time and cost per mile that they go to hunt for the car. Even if you don't use eBay and you utilize Facebook, there are still transaction fees that could sometimes apply, depending on if you use PayPal, and you still have to factor in the shipping and time. That gets into the third factor, buying a Hot Wheel car not off the pegs, mostly from a website like eBay. Buying a car online does consist of three factors as well. First is your time. How long did it take you to find the car online? Again, all those minutes add up. Second is shipping. How much does shipping cost? Third is the item itself. How much does the item cost before shipping? If buying a car online is cheaper than going out using the equation of buying the car on the pegs, then you've found favor in that equation. If it's not, however, you might want to try finding a good time to go hunting for Hot Wheels so you can get them off the pegs, and it will be cheaper. When it comes to buying, selling, and trading Hot Wheels, there are a few important factors to take note of. One of those factors is how popular is that car in real life. That can determine the die-cast version value simply based on the popularity. It goes back to economics of supply and demand. The second factor is to consider, is the car still on the shelf or on the pegs, or is it not? If it's a car that has been no longer produced on the pegs, then that could also drive the price higher as well. Another factor to consider is how much is the car on the pegs. If the car is $1 on the pegs, and online it's going for $15, you might want to consider trying to use the buy the car on the peg equation to see how much it would cost you to go find the car. That is, if the car is still on the pegs. Another factor is if the car is packaged or loose. Loose means that it is simply out of the package. Depending on the car, it might command a higher price if it's still in the package than it would be loose. One factor that is very hard to gauge is the perception or the interpretation of the exclusivity of the item. In other words, the timing of the item. Sometimes certain stores get certain cars before others, and certain parts of the world get cars before others. Because of this, when a car first comes out and somebody first lists it online, that will be a higher price than what it would be a couple weeks to a couple months later when the rest of the world gets the car. This is very common in the United States, where the West Coast tends to get cars sooner than the East Coast. Because of that, if a car is very popular, let's say a Datsun wagon, people will tend to buy all of those up, leaving none on the pegs, and trying to squeeze a profit out of selling them online. That does make it very hard to find them on the pegs, but if the equation of going to find the car on the pegs is more expensive than buying it online, you could simply buy the car online. Lastly, another factor is time and patience. Sometimes simply waiting can actually be in your favor. There are many times when I myself go collecting and I find cars that were once on the pegs months and months ago, and all of a sudden they're back on the pegs. Now this doesn't happen all the time, but it is important to consider. Sometimes people who buy cars to sell online can't sell them. And sometimes they will return those cars to the store that they purchased them from. You can then buy the car on the pegs for cheaper than what you could if you bought it online, depending on what that car was and depending on how much your equation is for trying to purchase a car on the pegs. This can be very helpful if you're trying to find certain cars that are part of a certain set or an entire set. At the end of the day, it all comes down to how much is the car worth it to you. You can use all of these equations that I mentioned in this video. It's simply just a reference. The important thing is to collect the cars and enjoy the hobby. I hope you found this video informational. If you did, please let me know. Leave a comment in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to reply to them. Let me know some of your Hot Wheel hunting tips. Thank you for watching this video, and happy hunting.